funding the opponent. I call it feeding the crocodile. You're feeding this crocodile thinking that he'll become like a pet dog, he'll become nice and cute dog. You know, I feed him enough, he'll be wagging his tail and he'll be nice to me. But crocodile's DNA is crocodile's DNA. He's not going to become a puppy dog no matter how much you feed him. You have to, first of all, respect yourself before others will respect you. You've got to create your own army of thinkers who produce a huge amount of discourse internationally published in well-respected areas. You know, you've got to create your own base, your own camp. And then you go and fight then you can play test cricket.
Welcome everyone to this event with Rajiv Malhotra ji today. And it was going to be an exciting 1 hour session. So today's talk by Rajiv ji is on breaking India. Based on his classic work on forces working to destroy India and its cultural roots. It is phenomenal work and helps us make sense of what we see every day, which we see in the Western media and institutions, which are so anti-India and anti-Hindu in spreading blatant lies. We'll also hear from Rajiv ji about why NGOs that supposedly protect human rights are so biased when it comes to Hindus, and why do Western governments pass resolutions that is helping the most brutalized people, like the persecuted Hindus in the 3 countries neighboring India, and how the mafia at work has genesis from many centuries ago and is supported by the internal and external agencies within India. So Rajiv ji's work peels off the layers at work and lays bare the enormous dangers we face. We have a QA session after Rajiv ji's talk, and all participants will be muted during this hangout, but please send us your questions in the Zoom chat window, and we will have Rajiv ji answer those questions. This is critical to make this session interactive, and hopefully you take something valuable today. After Rajiv ji's talk, Satya Dosapati from Global Hindu Heritage Foundation will say a few words on how each one of us can make a difference on the ground by knowing and hopefully contributing in any form towards some of the activities GHHF has been doing for the last 20 plus years. So please stay back after the QA session. So regarding Rajiv ji, you'll be amazed to know that Rajiv ji is a world-renowned researcher, author, speaker, thinker, and public intellectual on contemporary issues as they relate to civilization, cross-cultural encounters, spirituality, and science. He studied physics at St. Stephen's College in Delhi and did his postgraduate education in physics and computer science in the USA. He has been a successful entrepreneur in the information technology and media industry. At the summit of his career, when he controlled 20 technology companies in several countries, he took early retirement at the age of 44 to focus full-time on philanthropy, research, and public service. He founded Infinity Foundation in Princeton, USA for this purpose in 1994 and has been its founder director since inception. Rajiv ji has conducted original research in a variety of fields and has influenced many thinkers worldwide. He has disrupted the mainstream thought process among academic and non-academic intellectuals alike by providing fresh, provocative positions on Dharma and on India. Today, we are here with him to talk about the Breaking India forces. I welcome at this point Rajiv ji to start the event. Thank you.
Namaste, everyone. I'm a little bit under the weather, so excuse me for that. It's wonderful to connect with people who are interested in this subject. I'll give you a little broad background because I asked what kind of knowledge people have, and I was told that many people will be new to this. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview. And then I'll make some points about where things are and where I think they are headed. And we'll have a lot of Q&A, and I think the Q&A will bring out more details. I've been working on a whole lot of things concerning Indian civilization since the early mid-90s. On a full-time basis, I turned this into my full-time thing in 94. Until then, I was doing it part-time. And full-time means really full-time. I have no day job. I have no income. I had whatever I had made, I put it aside for retirement income, and I've been able to live okay. what I discovered is that Indians, including intellectuals, including ministry people, including ambassadors and writers, media, who ought to know and who claim to know and who are highly acclaimed, really do not understand the global challenges that India faces. They are myopic, stuck in some local stuff going on and what's happening in this election or that election or this budget. But India must understand there's a huge Kurukshetra around the world, and even today people don't understand. So I started looking at patterns of behavior. I started compiling a lot of evidence on what is going on. And I created several books. I have about half a dozen books, each one on a very different topic. Breaking India is only one of them, but there are other books on very, very different topics concerning the same general issue. Now, what I found is that the forces at work against India are global. They have a footprint in India, but the nexus is controlled from somewhere else. In India, you may think that certain parties are related in a certain way, but their international headquarters are actually quite differently related to each other. So Indians are kind of being fooled and being made to dance or celebrate, but not in control. We are not running the show. Our leaders aren't running the show. Our thought leaders aren't running the show. So I decided that it was not good enough for Indians to react to one episode here, one episode there. Somebody should do a whole framework. And and this is how I published my books. So one of those books was Breaking India. In that, I have described what are the forces, whether they are Christian evangelists, whether they are these Dalit and Dravidianism type forces, whether they are Islamic forces, Maoists, etc. And I focused on Tamil Nadu because I just decided I was making many trips to Tamil Nadu after the tsunami, and so I gathered this data, hired a translator, and started writing. Now, the forces that I coined Breaking India forces are at many levels, many moving parts. You can keep getting examples every day. Somebody has done something, and I provided a framework in which you can understand more clearly what is going on behind just one episode here and there. If you only see something as a local episode that happened in JNU or happened in Jamia Millia or wherever it happened, if you just see it as an isolated instance, you won't know what's going on. And actually, people are making a fool out of you because they're making it look like this is a separate event and that is a separate event. Actually, they're not separate events. There is an overall integrated strategy to do these things. There are huge funding mechanisms. There are training academies. I have been to some of their training camps. I have looked at the funding sources because they file tax returns in the US and they disclose who they are, what work they are doing. I visited their headquarters. So, I didn't sit and do some cut and paste and get emotional or anything. I did the work of a scholar. I did a lot of hard work as a scholar. And so the global problem cannot have a local solution. You cannot just sit in one place and solve this problem. And people based in India, no matter how good they are and how hard they're working, will never have all the data. So rather than accusing somebody that why are you living somewhere and all that, the point is I'm taking advantage of the fact that I'm living where I'm living, and I have access to a lot of data that people in India won't have. So I'm doing this as a matter of providing people a end-to-end framework and a whole kind of architecture of this Kurukshetra, how it's structured, how the whole thing functions. And I must say, the book made a difference, even though I was doing this work long ago. But the book made a difference because a lot of people became aware of it. And a lot of people have joined this in terms of getting very angry and very upset. But, blaming others is only one step towards, it helps in the sense that it builds awareness. But once you build this awareness we have, then it's not a good idea to just go on blaming others. We got to figure out what we're going to do. Now, I have offered to people in the Indian government, to various organizations, I've offered it to political organizations. So, from blaming other people to taking control of our own self, that's a very big shift. Now, people who've taken control of this are basically very emotional. and they go to various events and think tanks and various literary festivals and sammelans and all that, and rehashing the same problems which I've known for 25 years, but just rehashing them and going on finding more examples. They've blown up this bus and they've done this bad thing is not going to solve the problem. So one thing I suggested was that some authority should set up a long-term permanent cell to investigate all this. And I would be happy to give them some advisory. You know, nobody has taken me up on it. Nobody. They hear me, they say, very good, thank you so much. You've done all this great work. Oh, we are so appreciative. But nobody has actually set up this and said, okay, now you help us operate this. Nobody, to the best of my knowledge. So we keep going from one episode to another without looking behind to see where is the next one coming, what's the forecast for the next year, next 3 years. Because before violence happens on the streets, there is mental and emotional violence being created years before. The Breaking India forces are at the intellectual and emotional level. And once they have planted certain seeds, then gradually those people begin to hate each other, hate the nation, and at some point in time, they'll also turn violent. So you have to catch them early, upstream, rather than wait until it's too late. So there is a leadership problem at our end. I was told this leadership problem will go away when new government is elected, but it's been 6 years. It's enough time for it to have gone away. Then they said, okay, other priorities are there, the economy and all that. This will happen later. But these things have gone worse. The Breaking India forces are stronger than they were. I don't see any minister really understanding it. They are emotional and they hit back at one thing and one thing. But there are deep structural issues that have not been addressed in terms of what to do about these Breaking India forces. There are some good, important structural laws and changes in the last 12 months, which are very good, very late, but still very good. However, they don't go far enough in terms of actually addressing what these forces are up to, and a counter offensive, which has to be an intellectual Kshatriya offensive. Now, Infinity Foundation has started this in intellectualkshatriya.com. You can join it. You can take some of our courses. You can become an intellectual Kshatriya. I have written books. I have videos. I'm going to develop an e-learning course. We need funding. We need volunteers to develop these courses. You can be part of that. But, we can only do so much as a private philanthropic and, a non-profit organization with meager means. There are huge forces from government to industry to spiritual gurus to political movements that have lots of resources being squandered. And I don't know why they have really not come up with this intellectual Kshatriya academy that we've been talking about for a very long time. And only when you develop this research into the opposing side, long before they blow up something, long before they do that, surveillance, understanding what is the discourse they're teaching to students, how are they radicalizing them, what do we do to counter that? Unless you do that, these problems are going to continue. Now, the good cops and bad cops, you need to understand these two terms, which I've described in some of my writings. Good cop is a person who is dealing with problems in a very positive way. Sab theek ho jayega, all is one. And, like the diplomat, ambassador, he's saying nice, positive things, goody stuff. Needed. We need that. But you also don't want to become a soft target. You also need the bad cop. The bad cop is somebody who's no nonsense, very critical, very analytical, giving facts, not emotional, not angry, but giving honest facts and giving strong arguments to point out and expose where the problems are. So I have served as bad cop, and I find that, if you look at the American history of good cops and bad cops, you look at Chinese history, you look at the history even in the ancient Indian texts, the bad cop was a hero. He was supported. He was given a lot of, value and importance because he's sticking his neck out. He's sticking his neck out and doing all the dirty work, all the dangerous work. People have to support him. They can't abandon him, ditch him when he's in trouble. They cannot, become very petty and bring him down on silly little things. And I feel that the support for a bad cop has not been there. That's a problem of our community. I feel that the people who should have supported have really sometimes gone out and said, okay, now what's in it for me? How do I take these ideas and spin them myself? So I think the tendency has been to be risk averse, not to do the tapasya required, the hard work required to understand the intellectual kshatriya and then become a leader. There is a lot of opportunism. People want to become like instant famous, get popularity here and there. So I'm pointing out problems in our own community. We have to now, because while some of you are newcomers and understanding the opposing side is a novelty, and of course you need to understand that. For me, it's been a quarter century, more than 25 years of going on and on exposing the other side. And so a guy like me is asking, when are we going to get up and do something? So it's the challenge is with our leadership, our rank and file, our samaj. We are too complacent with Bollywood and cricket and, good things happening. We get a new phone, get new this and that. Everybody, life goes on. But I'm afraid that things are going to get worse. I'm afraid of that. I want to close by saying that my next book, which is why I get up at 4 in the morning, 7 days a week for the last 8-9 months. And in the next 2 months, I want to finish it and then give it to the publisher. My next book is going to be I don't want to discuss details, but it's going to give you some bad news and you have to be ready for that. Because there are certain things people have not understood and not become exposed. These things have not been exposed, which I'm going to expose in this book, which will show you that things could become pretty bad, even worse than they are. And this is not, it is not a matter of putting out fire, local fire department goes, put out this fire, put out that fire. It's not reacting to one episode, another episode. So I'm really not interested in discussing what is the latest episode, who did what. But a lot of people are doing that. We need those people to do that. But my job is to think strategically, to think what is beneath the surface, what is long-term, what is the big picture. That is what I'm working on. And that is what my next book will be about also. So I have so much more to say, but why don't we open it to questions? And then we can have more leisurely discussion. We can take more questions. So what do you think of it?
Sure, Rajivji. So we have few questions that have come in. So let me start by asking, first of all, say thanks for that wonderful talk. And the first question that has come up is, do we have a solution to the demographic changes that have already happened in India? The way one communities throws their weight wherever they are in great numbers, it seems so much like irreversible.
Excellent question. This is one of the most important questions nobody has wanted to discuss. It's not enough to say, okay, new people coming into the country, we'll control them in a certain way. Fine. But there's a huge overpopulation and it is skewed. Birth rates are not uniform. Certain communities are having a whole lot of those birth rates. And then there's illegal migration. So this is going to create a very disruptive and unstable situation in India. And I think the vote bank politics is encouraging bad behavior by politicians also. So there's an opportunistic, who do I have an alliance with? Who will help me win this next election? There is all this short-term thinking. But the tough work of raising demographics as an issue, from the level of academics to media to all kind of research output, that has not been done. And it's not enough to just emotionally say something of this sort. This has to be backed with research. Now, there are some groups that have produced some research reports. And whenever I ask them, why don't you discuss the implications of this trend, this demographic trend in terms of social problems, they back off. They want to be good cop. Okay. They want to give the data, let somebody else do all that. So we need to get out of that. And I'm glad you raised this issue. Whoever the person was, please raise this issue as often as you can. What about the demographic problems? India is overpopulated as it is, even on top of, and then there is large unemployment, which is understated. I want people to know that the official statistics on unemployment in India do not take into account women who are unemployed. The assumption being that, most of these women don't want a job, so it's not a problem to be unemployed. I don't think it's as simple as that. I think a lot of women have just not tried because there aren't that many opportunities. So if you were to include unemployed women, it would be a much higher figure. So this problem of too many people, not enough jobs, can the economy grow fast enough to create these jobs? And on top of that, is skewed, tilted demographics where certain communities are going on growing, and they have no responsibility to be properly educated. They have no social civic responsibility, just becoming more and more in number, which means they have more voting power. This is a very serious problem. So I'm glad you raised it, and I hope more people will pick this up as an important controversial issue.
Okay, great. Thank you. So the next question is, what are the ways to fight against Hindu phobia in foreign university campuses? Why is Hindu civilization a threat for West?
So I think you should read the Hindu phobia books I have. They've already answered uh, why it's a threat, and this whole business of civilizations, and how certain things are not digestible, how certain things are not negotiable. They are poison pills. I've explained all this, so you should just. I mean, I have some videos you should watch on this issue, because rather than giving you a 2-minute answer, it's better that you spend the time. If you are serious, then you will spend the time. If you are not interested in spending the time, then it's not worth it. Anyway, it should not be just casual conversation just to pass time. So there is a lot. Or if you go to rajivmalhotra.official, on the YouTube site, there is 1,000 videos on these kind of topics. You can just type in Hindu phobia and you will get a lot of videos on that. Now, what to do about it? I have spent I would say I've spent 60% of my adult life full time fighting this. Okay. So I have a lot of examples, a lot of case studies, fighting on face to face, online, in writing, all kind of things with academic people all over, the Western world and in India. And the interesting thing is that uh, many people who start wanting to be an activist in this field haven't really read the reports of what we did, what you can learn from them. So, for example, the wrong things are being done. Some people are raising funds, actually raising funds to put dharma chairs in these universities, uh, which will be controlled by these universities, which will fund the very same people that I'm fighting. I already tried and gave away a few $1 million of my hard-earned money to Harvard, to Columbia, to Princeton University, University of California. I mean, I could go naming prestigious places, uh, to try and solve the problem as an outsider, giving them money, hoping that they put up this chair and they will do this. And I realized after a lot of hands-on work that that's not the way to do it. You got to create your own or your own home team of intellectuals, which is what we are doing. And when you have a critical mass of your own intellectual Kshatriya intellectuals, and you're producing output, publishing the output, giving it popularity, these people are then going to international conferences. That's the way that our message is being taken seriously. It is not being taken seriously by funding the opponents. We recently had a case where a whole lot of Indians were funding Sheldon Pollock, same argument, to set up this chair for Shingeri in Colombia. I mean, and I fought against that. Luckily, those guys backed off, but quite angry at me. Funding the opponent, I call it feeding the crocodile. You're feeding this crocodile thinking that he'll become like a pet dog, he'll become nice and cute dog. I feed him enough, he'll be wagging his tail and he'll be nice to me. But crocodile's DNA is crocodile's DNA. He's not going to become a puppy dog no matter how much you feed him. In fact, he'll eat your arm. So this business of no civilization has been able to fund enough to shift the thoughts in another civilization. That's not how it works. You have to first of all respect yourself before others will respect you. You've got to create your own army of thinkers who produce a huge amount of discourse internationally published in well-respected areas. You've got to create your own base, your own camp, and then you go and fight then you can play test cricket. You cannot play test cricket by saying we'll fund this other fellow to not play so well against us. So our wrong approaches have wasted a lot of money. And the right approach is to create our counter argument, our counter scholars. And Infinity Foundation is doing that. We've had 6 conferences called Swadeshi Indology. They are not for the masses. They are not popular level conferences. These are very serious intellectual conferences. by invitation only. People who are good scholars only are invited, and the idea is to nurture them and cultivate them. So just to let you know, in a few months ago, September, October timeframe, November timeframe, we held our annual retreat in Rishikesh. 17 people showed up by invitation. They are part of our group. They are full time on the payroll. We are developing them. Your help is welcome. That's how we are doing it after having experimented many other ways. Now, fighting randomly here and there, putting a petition, this guy should be fired, none of that works. Nobody, I mean, you just basically wasting your time and rabble rousing. There is some value for rabble rousing, but to change the discourse, you got to work hard. So I think there's two levels. At the level of public outcry, I'm working with Hindu Student Council, HSC. They're extremely good. They're working with students. We hosted a big event of theirs at my house just a month ago or so, a month or two ago, and they are in many campuses. And then at the level of taking on senior scholars and deeply entrenched discourse, the job is much more difficult and much longer term.
Okay, thank you. We have a lot of questions coming in, so I'll keep going.
Sure.
We may run short in time, but here's a question from Om Kelkar. He's asking, how can we get the government of India to take interest to this level and support in creating a cell to launch these investigations? How can we generate pressure on our national security agencies and ministers? Have you had any success with the Indian government in pushing what you have?
No, I have tried a lot and I have not had success. There is the External Affairs Ministry has a cultural arm called ICCR, Indian Council of Cultural Relations. So I used to know the previous head, Lokesh Chandra, very good friend of mine. The new head, I've met them many, many times. They're very nice, generous, decent. They'll talk nicely, support you verbally, ask you, हाँ एक proposal भेज दो, कर देंगे. अभी आपको हम invite करेंगे, कर देंगे. But nothing has happened. My proposal was that we will have an Infinity Foundation Swadeshi Indology Conference in Washington, D.C., where we'll have 2 days of papers. We'll invite the opposing side also. We'll pick up all the major controversial topics that the academy has against us. And on each of them, we'll have a panel with our scholars and we'll invite the opposing scholars. We'll videotape it, we'll have it go live, and we will show that the Indian government is behind us in responding. And they didn't want to. They just didn't want to. They have their own cadre of thinkers and speakers they will promote, and they'll do a small conference here, one in Moscow, one here, London, here and there. And none of those produce anything of consequence. They are just sort of homegrown, inbred in their own organizations. They have some people, and those people are not that good. So, the problem with the Indian government is it's only using at the top level talent from within its own rank and file. And I used to be a consultant for people like AT&T, British Telecom, and they were privatized. And they were also like that. They were only promoting from within, very inbred. And they were threatened by outsiders. The way they turned around and became powerful organizations was when they started bringing in senior people from the outside also. A lot of people, senior people were promoted from within, but some were kept from the outside also. This shaking up of the culture is very necessary, but RSS, BJP, VHP, all of them, they have not yet understood the importance of bringing in top leaders from the outside, because those top leaders have a different experience, and you need that also. They will generally close ranks. They will listen to a guy like me with great respect, take my slides, take my whatever I've written, hand it to some of their own people and say, हाँ, आप जाके आप करो, as if those guys will know how to do it. Because if you haven't worked hard to think about it, if you haven't worked hard and paid the price, going out and arguing, fighting, facing the bullets in the battlefield, if you haven't done that, you're not necessarily going to be able to implement it either. So the Indian government has been a good listener, but not good at all, or not done anything to implement any of the ideas we've given. And that's the fact.
Okay, another question here. How to get Hindus to have more self-esteem? I notice Hindus are very ashamed or not part of their Vedic heritage. Do you see this also? How to solve this?
Yeah, I think some of it is being solved. Uh, when I first started, gurus were ashamed of saying Hinduism. They wanted to say spirituality. They were afraid of the H word. And they were into this, all religions are same, you know, this whole denial of anything specific about our identity. And they were more interested in impressing outsiders than in cultivating strong people from our own community. This was a trend. Uh, I paid a lot of price of fighting this trend. So many Hindu temples would ban me from speaking. Here, Hindu temples would ban me from speaking in their temple because I was too controversial. I would talk about these things. I would say that you need a strong identity, and there's nothing un-American about it. Americans want you to explain who you are, what your identity is. No one else will do it for you. You have to do it for yourself. And I've studied the whole history of immigration and how each immigrant group created its own strong identity and then got respected by the by the mainstream. We have to do the same. I was talking about this all the time, and it was more controversial. Usko mat bulao, he will say things we don't want to and all that stuff. So this has changed because I think people saw for themselves the evidence of events happening all over the world. The Hindu phobic events, the Breaking India events are so strong that it is undeniable. And so gradually more and more people started talking about it. So now I think some gurus have also woken up. A lot more, some gurus who used to say everything is the same, no longer saying that. Some gurus saying, don't use the H word, are using the H word. So I see a good sign from there. I also think that pride in our Vedic identity requires us to revive research in science, research in agamas, serious research. And this is something that we try to do at our level as best as we can. But obviously a lot more work is needed in this area. So until we can create a scientific basis for pride in our heritage, just pride because we are Hindus, we must be great and all that, that won't work. We need to show the logic. We need to also give responses. People say you have a caste system. We should give a response, and we have given this response so many times. But it needs to filter down to the average person. It will only filter down if the local mandir everywhere is also an education center. We've approached local mandirs, have an educational seminar on a regular basis. I'll be happy to come. So many people will train. So if every local mandir became an education center, R&D center, also, outreach center, media promotion, media center, mosques do this all the time. Churches do this all the time. Most major denominations have a kind of a think tank. They have an educational center. They have a public relations center. They have all that. We need to create that. We should not be embarrassed that we are out there in an outreach mode. We should be in an outreach mode. So the Hindu pride in Hinduism has to start with the keepers of our dharma. The keepers of our dharma are the temples, the ashrams, the gurus. If they're not very good at projecting this, and some of them want to nowadays. In the last 10, 15 years, things have changed. They want to. Their communication skills may not be that great. A few of them are extremely good at communication. So I would say, wait for another few years. I think in this respect, things will get better. Hindus, the next generation of Hindus will be more assertive about their identity. Government has not done its job in changing the textbooks. We've been talking about it for a very long time. The UPSC exam is still on the... I just recently was invited to the IAS Academy in Missouri, and I talked to these, all these IAS people and all that. And it was wonderful to talk to young people. But, there are still similar ideas they have about Hindu Dharma, about Vedic heritage. They're still raised on those curriculums. The syllabus and the exam, the UPSC exam is still about pretty much the same. So structural changes, these are required. And I'm no longer going around the ministries and telling them all this like I did. I spent many years. I am not going to go around and waste my time. I am basically very deeply involved in researching, writing new innovative books, and that's my calling. And when that's done, I'll retire.
Okay.
So Amit, should we Okay, yeah, continue. We have a few more minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have a few more questions. So one interesting question has come up regarding the recent speech by George Soros at uh, uh, the World Summit. So what are the implications of the George Soros speech on India?
Well, first of all, anyone who's surprised must have been sleeping, because George Soros has been like this for a long time. If you look at people who work for George Soros, including some Indians who work there, I knew one of them who then left and started his own, hedge fund very successfully. Uh, the kind of influence he had was all very left wing kind of influence. His own ideology tends to be like that. So George Soros it's not a surprise that he's actually put $1 billion or whatever into some university which will carry out his ideas. But it should not be a wake-up call just because he now made an open statement. He was saying these things indirectly and funding these kind of causes for a very long time. So I'm not. So my response is that there's nothing new, nothing surprising. This is George Soros is very much into this ideological camp of postmodernism, that the future of the world is without borders, without identities, without national.
Rajiv ji, the next question is how to develop the right kind of ecosystem simultaneously, how to break the existing, what we can call as pseudo secular ecosystem nurtured by Congress and communists.
So the building of the ecosystem, those guys have been doing it for many generations. They've got training academy where they train people at all levels, including management, senior levels, lower levels. There are 300 seminaries in US, many dozens of seminaries in India. There are so many madrasas. Madrasas are two kinds. One is the retail, the local shop in a small village or in a juggi jhompdi colony. That's not creating intellectual stuff. But there are these very big intellectual madrasas also, around 20 of them in India. And they are think tanks. They are doing a lot of research. They're looking at the map of the whole thing. And they're planning short term, medium term, long term, all of that. We don't have, and then of course the left people have a huge amount of infrastructure for thinking, training. They've captured the academy, they've captured some government think tanks. Do you know that the ICSSR, which is the Indian Council of Social Science Research, which is headed by one Mr. Malhotra. I'm sorry, I'm not related to him, and I'm sorry, the fellow Malhotra, he's running that place, but he's not produced anything useful. I don't know if he's still there, but about a year ago he was there as the as person in charge. All nice story, all good talk. We want everything Vedic, Hindu, and all. Now that is the government organization within HRD, which is giving hundreds of crores of funding, government funding, to about 30 social sciences institutions around the country, which were set up to breed left-wing social scientists, which have not been dismantled. Most of the people in running these social science institutions are still the same. Most of the output is still the same. The problem is that the new establishment, when they invite somebody like me to write a proposal, the proposal has to fit the concept of social science which was defined by the leftists. I don't want to produce work which fits their definition because I'm not interested in that. So they haven't had the imagination to think out of the box and say, okay, even the criteria for inviting proposals has to change. So 6 years into this new government, the ICSSR is not able to produce any impact. I'm sorry. So so there is also something to be said for having competent, sharp, deep thinking people in key positions, and we haven't been able to do that. So that's the problem. There's a lot of energy and anger and emotions at the popular level. A lot of good people I meet all over, but the money is there with the government. Huge amount of money, just going away to the wrong places. Here we are trying to meet salary of 50,000 rupees a month, which is not a hell of a lot, for some really deserving Swadeshi Indology scholars, having a hard time raising some money here and there. We've got about 10 of them. We want to have more. Here we are starving for funds, starving for basic resources, little office somewhere, little things like that. And then you see the massive establishments the government has supposedly to do this job. And, we are doing their job for them. They are paid. The government is paid. Those people are paid. They're not doing me a favor. Actually, I'm doing them a favor because I don't want any pay for myself. I'm helping do their job for them. But when I go and visit them, they think like, they're going to do me a favor to meet me and listen to me and try to see if they can help me out, as if they're doing me a personal favor. So, I've also gotten quite frustrated.
So, Rajivji, to that point, there was a question by somebody that isn't organizations like maybe RSS, VHP, or other Hindu organizations trying to get that intellectual property right from you and push that down their cadre? Isn't that?
The point is, okay, I am very happy you asked me this. Thank you for this question. My relations with the top level are very good. From Mohan Bhagwat and the top people. I'm very happy, very proud of them. But sorry about this. I have a sore throat, so I'm also taking some stuff. At the top level, they're wonderful. But the middle level, and I think at the lowest level also, they're wonderful. It's the middle level who are very ambitious. They want to do it themselves. They want to put their name on it. They want to see if they can use me and then put me aside. And nobody who's put so much effort and produced so much knowledge and who wants to impart it feels like working very hard if that's the attitude with which you are received. Okay, jo aapne dena hai, humko de dijiye, and then you get lost and we will take over. That's not the attitude. I mean, they could easily have taken all that infrastructure, what they have, and said, okay, now you come and run this. Then I would run it. Because I'm also a hands-on guy. I'm an entrepreneur. I've run businesses. I've run 20 companies all over the world. Far more experience in running businesses worldwide than any of these guys have. So I can certainly take charge and deliver results. I'm into a results-oriented. I ran businesses with results. I demand other people to have results. So there's a 6-month goal, 1-year goal, 3-year goal, 5-year goal. There's weekly reports in my organization. We have weekly conference calls. Everybody turns in a weekly status report. You can ask them, and we monitor and we measure. So with this kind of results-oriented, an obsession for output and productivity, I don't know why they haven't been able to utilize somebody like that. Are they threatened? Are they closing ranks because they feel that, certain outsiders may come and it will not be good for us and we just all stay together? In that case, it's mediocrity. Because, you should think beyond your own ego. You should think what is best for the big cause, what is best for the Rashtra. So I'm writing a lot on this. I'm writing on the Rashtra. I'm writing one book on the Rashtra also, on where is the Rashtra, where is it vulnerable, what are the issues. I'm writing a whole book on the Rashtra. And, I decided that I should honestly tell what it is. That's what I'm going to do.
Rajivji, just maybe a last 2 questions, and
sure.
We can quickly wrap up the QA session. So one, the question is from Sri has a follow-up. So his new book, he had come up with, Sri Iyer, who painted My Money White, talks about the breaking India from the ground. So UCC, Uniform Civil Code, followed by the population control pan-India, needs to be passed. That's what he's saying. What are your thoughts on this?
Yes. There are things like that need to be done. I mean, I don't want to go into some of the controversy of the recent, some bills that were passed and whatnot. But I think that there are certain things that are non-discriminatory. You say, okay, this is the Uniform Civil Code for everybody, non-discriminatory. Then you shut up all these people who say you're against this one, against that one. Pehle wo to karo. So if you have policies which are non-discriminatory, it'll be very difficult for people to take us on. I think we should list all of those which are applicable to everybody, regardless of anything. And the ones that will build the nation, the ones that will cure all the old problems, the old baggage, we should implement those quickly.
Okay. So Rajivji, do you have time for one more question or?
Of course.
No.
I had told them that I have to leave at 1, which is in 5 minutes.
Okay.
For another appointment, but I already called, delayed that by 5 minutes because you lost 5 minutes due to my fault of the Wi-Fi.
Okay. So we'll ask
I'm good for another 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah. So So last question for today. I know there are a lot more questions, and there are like around I think 200 plus people on the Facebook live of pgurus.com, and then we have 100 plus people here on the Zoom. Uh, so the question is from Venkat. He's asking that Chetan Bhagat advises that if we focus on economy and become richer, many of the dividing forces in the Indian society will soften and problems will go away. Highlighting differences at this stage is bad for the economy and hence could weaken India further. Your thoughts on that?
You see, Chetan Bhagat's idea is theoretically very nice looking. You do A, then you do B, then you do C, then you do D. But the point is that we don't have the luxury of time, so much time. Things are happening too fast now. By the time you've done A is not fixed in 3 years, 5 years. Fixing the economy for 1.3 billion people, creating this infrastructure, creating so many jobs, fixing the economy also requires fix the education system. It's not just putting new textbooks, but training teachers, lakhs of teachers to teach those textbooks. And then you got to re-educate people from the ground up. It will take a whole long time. So you can't say until A is done, don't do B, don't do C, don't do D. You have to do them in parallel. So while fixing the economy, which is the outside infrastructure, there have to be parallel things fixing the inner infrastructure, the adhyatmic infrastructure. There have to be movements to create a sense of nation in the people also. When Mao started his cultural revolution, they didn't fix the economy right away, but he created a grand narrative of China. That's what the cultural revolution gave. Gave everybody a sense of pride. They had 100% education requirement, compulsory requirement for every young man and woman, everyone. Now, Nehru did not have education back when Mao had. So all the Chinese were educated. 3 generations of Chinese have been educated. Excuse me. When you meet a Chinese today, when I meet Chinese people, I'm very impressed by their intelligence, by their education. Their parents were educated and their grandparents were educated. Everyone. So, it doesn't matter who it is. Since they've been educated for 3 generations, it's a whole different kind of outlook. We don't have that. So, they didn't wait and say, okay, only when China becomes rich, then we'll solve the problem. They start while developing the economy, they also were developing the narrative, they were developing the educational infrastructure. So we have multiple tracks. That is why we have ministries. So what is the ya to hona ki shut down the culture ministry, because until the finance ministry has done its job and given us a $10 trillion economy, there's no reason to have culture. Either you shut it down. If it is there and thousands of bureaucrats, lakhs of bureaucrats are there and huge amount of funding is there, then you make them perform. We have culture ministry, not performing. We have HRD ministry, not performing. In the Ministry of External Affairs, we have ICCR, not performing. But budget is there. Infrastructure, IAS people, ministers, all this shan wan, big buildings going around in lal batti cars and all that is going on. So why would I say let those mediocre people off the hook? And we'll first wait until we are rich. In that case, shut down those ministries, because we can't afford them. If you are funding them, hold them accountable.
Okay. Last question for today. So the question is coming from Anil is asking this question: how can NGOs work with you, Rajiv ji, so that they can create some courses at different level for masses, for academicians, for even the normal like Hindus all across US, Canada, and the world?
Excellent. I like people who come to me and say, okay, here's what I'm willing to do. Let's work together. That I like, rather than somebody just telling me what I should do and all that. Okay. So I like this. We have started an e-learning initiative. My book, Breaking India, is now a course. We just haven't launched it because the party that was supposed to host it and on a platform, there's some technical issues. I don't know what it is, but it's been delayed for like almost 4 or 5 months. But the course itself is done. Now, all my other books we want to turn into courses. And then we want to take each of these, instead of a 10-hour, 15-hour course, we want to create small courses. The material we have, I have 1,000 video lectures. I have a studio here, right here in our office. We have a studio with 5 cameras, the latest in the world, a full-time paid staff of 3. So we have the capacity to do these things. Now, if you are an NGO and you want to build a particular course and you will work with us, we can co-brand it. You take the responsibility of taking this particular knowledge, one particular idea, come up with a small idea and say, okay, in this small idea, we'll do a e-learning course. We'll take the lead. You give us some guidance. We will do the work and we will co-brand it, market it, and do whatever we want. I'll be so happy. I'll be so happy but then, you shouldn't come in and put burden on me that I have to do this work and I have to now, you should take it. I'll tell you an ideal collaborator is the Bangalore-based group of supporters. Some of them are in the US, most of them are in Bangalore. They've never asked me to do anything. They just say, give us permission and we'll translate the Kannada for this book or that book. And I say, fine, do it. After I write one sentence and say, yeah, go do it, they go and do it. They raise the money, they do project meetings, they have plans, milestones, they do quality control. And then they call me and say, okay, we're going to do this book launch, come. And so between giving them permission and the final product launch, I don't have to do anything. That's the kind of hands-off, proposal I need, because I am really working very hard. I have 15 more books to finish. Each one of them will create a revolution. I can promise you that. It's not the same thing written over and over again. One book I'm writing right now is Sanskrit non-translatables. It's done and it's going to come out on the non-translatability of Sanskrit words. The second book, I'm keeping it secret until it comes out because it'll be very controversial. I don't want to make any noise before that. Third book is U-turn theory. Fourth book is theory of digestion. So these 4 books are going to be this year, 2020. I have another 5 books for 2021, also in very advanced stages. Okay, so I have so much work to do. And therefore, I really like it when people come and say, okay, here is something we'll do. I'll say, fine, let's do it together.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was really, really illuminating, educating, inspiring, Rajivji, to hear you and answer all of those questions. We have a lot of questions and everyone has been asking, are we going to have these sessions more? So I guarantee you that.
So we can have them on a regular basis. I have no problem. Also, I want you to go and subscribe to our channel, Rajiv Malhotra.official YouTube channel sign. Right. And on Twitter, it's at Rajiv Message. And help me get the word out, because mediocre people are doing so well because they're saying sensational things that people want to hear. Here we are putting a lot of hard work and we need some support.
Yeah. So guys, I'm going to put up a slide which gives the different links of Rajiv Malhotra ji's YouTube channel, where you can make a donation. You can become an intellectual Kshatriya. There's a link for that where you can go and you can know more about the Infinity Foundation, which he is the founder of. And we need to support Rajiv ji with funds, and the other parties and everyone else in the world, they are doing it collectively. We need to also support Rajiv ji in his fabulous work he has been doing by contributing in every possible manner. So thank you once again, Rajiv ji, and I'll share the link with everyone now.
And Amit, thank you for taking this initiative. And Satya, you've always been both. I must say, Amit and Satya are great guys, good friends, and very important for our cause. I just have to run for an appointment. Otherwise, I would love to stay here. I'm going to sign off, but you guys continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv ji.